We've also got the British Open teeing off at Royal Troon tomorrow. And who better to discuss that and all things golf than longtime golf writer, author of 9 books, Alan Shipnuck, joining the show right now. Alan, thanks a lot for being here. This is obviously not the first time at Royal Troon. So in your lengthy and distinguished history covering this sport, what are you expecting over the next 4 days?
Every British Open venue is weather dependent, but Troon especially, because it's not a very artful golf course. That back nine usually, it's one of those traditional links that goes out and back, and the whole back nine plays into the prevailing wind. And when the wind blows, it is a beast. It's one of the hardest tests in golf. So given how far the guys hit it these days and that the course is otherwise pretty defenseless, we need some weather. The forecast for tomorrow is pretty rough, which of course we love as golf fans and observers. You don't want blue skies and short sleeves at the Open Championship. You want pain and suffering. You want side wind. You want umbrellas being blown inside out. That's what it's all about. So I think we're gonna have a good championship. Obviously, the last time we were at Troon, the epic showdown between Phil Mickelson and Henrik Stenson, and even though I think it's one of my least favorite courses on the Rota, to be honest, it has produced terrific winners. So I think it'll be a big boy leaderboard, and hopefully we get another exciting Sunday.
You mentioned the weather, and that's always, as a outside golf observer, that's always what strikes me at the British Open, because for one thing, for whatever reason, obviously, with the transmission, the TV feed always looks a little bit off. Everything's kind of delayed. So you're watching guys, and everything's kind of blurred, but also you can just see like their weatherproof vests almost being ripped off their bodies with every shot. And it seems like ebb and flow. Sometimes it seems totally fine. You watch them on the next hole, and Tiger's getting blown over or something. It's a fascinating type of a setting, I think, for golf. And yet you look at the favorites just in terms of the betting odds, and it's exactly who you would anticipate being there, which is it's Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy at the top.
Yeah, in wind and weather, the ball striking is really crucial, because when you hit a shot, the wind it amplifies and exaggerates that. Whereas when you hit it flush, it can kind of rip through the elements. And so, yeah, I mean, it's going to be the ball strikers are going to rise to the top. And the greens are pretty flat and slow. It's not Augusta National. It's not like Pinehurst, where the art of putting is so elevated. On these kind of slower, flatter, grainier greens, everybody can make putts, and so it really does. And it's not just hitting it flush, but it's having that creativity, playing the different shots, using the wind, using the contours. So. The British Open tends to reward the best ball strikers, but it also has a long history of kind of quirky winners. And so whether you're talking about Ben Curtis or Todd Hamilton or some of these guys who have come out of nowhere, and the weather is part of that. The Masters is a small field, but the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open, the other majors with full fields, they tee them off on the first and the 10th. Tees, and so the tee time window is compressed. The British Open's only the first tee, and so they go from they tee off at 6:30 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, and so the draw you get and where you are on the course when the weather comes in or blows out is really profound. Weather affects the Open more, not just because there's more of it, but because of the way the tee times fall. Guys, you can get totally hosed. I mean, we've seen that, Tiger at Muirfield in 2003 when he was chasing the Grand Slam, shot 81 because he had to play into a hurricane. There is there's a flukiness, an element of chance to the Open, the way the ball bounces and your tee time versus the weather. So that's kind of part of the fun. There's a little magic still to who wins and loses.
I honestly don't know the answer to this. Alan Shipnuck is our guest. How do the draws work for the tee time? When it is, this is not like the coin flip at the start of a football game, and it's like, okay, each team's going to get roughly the same possessions. Like, it literally can be, based on what time you get, can be a completely different conditions. Is it a draw of a hat? Is it an NBA-style lottery? Like, how do they do it?
Yeah, it's all done in secret by these dudes in tweed jackets smoking pipes, in a wood paneled library. The PGA Tour week to week has a formula. There's an algorithm that with the tee times. At the Open, it's just these old boys at the R&A. They just wing it. And so theoretically everyone gets an early and a late tee time. Um, the marquee players are in the TV windows, of course. If you're a qualifier or a scrub, you're going to go really early or really late. They try and have the best players a little more in the middle of the day, but um, it just depends with your morning and your afternoon wave. Like when does the weather get gnarly? So they try and balance it so you have one morning and one afternoon tee time, but there's no accounting for when things are going to get nasty. So that's part of the fun. It's part of the parlor game. How the RNA, the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St. Andrews, which handles the tee times, how do they? Which, by the way, isn't that just a great name? Like as a ruling body, it's so funny. The Royal and Ancient. But anyway, so yeah, there's an art and a science and a lot of mystery baked into the tee times.
Yeah, Alan, Chris here. You talk about the draw and the tee times, and you talk about a guy who's really come on. He's really only been playing for a year, Ludwig Oberg. He has a chance to really win this thing, and you saw him get frustrated with slow play last week. Now he's paired with Bryson DeChambeau and Tom Kim, two of the slowest players on tour. Like, Ludwig's kind of getting screwed here, no?
Yes and no. I mean, the Open is always slow because, playing in threesomes and a lot of guys backing off shots, trying to read the wind. You hit it into the heather. It can be a long look for your golf ball. Guys have misadventures in the pot bunkers. I mean, it's just never fast over there, which is ironic because if you go play recreationally, and the members at the clubs are up your ass if you play in lower than 3 hours and 45 minutes. So it's kind of a mixed message, but yeah, so it's that's just part of championship golf. Unfortunately, the fast players usually have to bend to the will of the slow players. It's rarely the other way around, which is unfortunate. And it's a competitive disadvantage for a guy like Ludwig, but that's part of the mental battle. The US Open, the rounds can be 5.5 hours because guys are shooting 85. So it's just, if you want to prevail at the majors, you have to learn to deal with all of the things that are coming at you, which is the media attention, much larger fans, all the hype, and obviously the exacting court conditions. But slow play is part of it. It just really is. I mean, it's an issue week to week. It's exaggerated at the majors because the setups are so much tougher. So, unfortunately, he's gonna have to learn to walk a little slower and take a few more deep breaths and try, and that's just one more thing you have to overcome.
I just love that in the gambling era of all sports, right? And there's calls for transparency, and there's all these things about like we should know everything should happen in front, and you've still got the tweed blazers and the smoking pipes guys like huddling together, deciding who's playing with who's getting screwed with who their playing partners are. They got to play early, they got to play late. It feels like something that should happen out in the open, but I understand you're going to Royal Troon. You're in a little different category.
I love it. Also, Alan, look at the last time it was here. Henrik and Phil kind of ran away from the rest of the field. I mean, Henrik was 14 shots clear of third place, Phil 11 shots clear. Do you anticipate another 20 under winning this week?
Well, again, I hate to keep hitting the same theme, but it really depends on the weather. If the wind doesn't blow hard, then definitely 20 under is in play. I mean, there is no golf course on the planet that's long enough to test the players. It doesn't exist. And especially these, 19th century playing fields, like without the wind, these guys will destroy the golf course. I mean, 20 under would probably get you seventh place if there's no wind. So, but if it blows hard, it's just completely different animal. So, with slower greens, flatter greens, and the absence of meaningful length, I mean, the course is utterly defenseless. So yeah, if you get 4 days where it's relatively still, then 20 under just gets you in the conversation.
So, you go back to the U.S. Open, of course, and how things played out with Rory, with Bryson DeChambeau, who happen to be the two faces of PGA and LIV and all that, which I want to get to momentarily here. But from all the people you talk to and seeing kind of an unprecedented type of a collapse from Rory, Allen, what is the state of Rory McIlroy, who, again, he's still the second highest betting favorite. He's on familiar turf here. What's the state of him from the people that are around him after what happened?
It's really one of the biggest questions in the entire sport is Rory's head. it's been a maxim in golf forever. You can't play your best without, a clear mind. And he's been in the center of this battle for the soul of the game. Probably people know he filed for divorce and then just said, "Oh, take backsies," just a month ago. There's a lot swirling around in his noggin, and he's already been in this place where he's getting in his own way at the major championships. I mean, week to week, the guy is a dominant force. He's won all over the world. He's won the FedEx Cup multiple times. He's won the European Tour's version of that, the Race to Dubai, multiple times. He's won the Players Championship. He's won the Tour Championship. He's won all these marquee tournaments. So clearly his game is good enough to win anytime he tees it up, but he wants it too much. And the scar tissue has been built up so much at the majors over the last decade. And so, you know, nobody knows what we're going to get from Rory. I don't think Rory knows. I mean, that's part of his issue. It's like he's kind of white knuckling it every time he turns up at this major, just trying to do the same thing over and over and trying to get a different outcome. In the heart of his prime, when he hasn't been injured and he's been playing beautiful golf, that he hasn't picked one of these off in a full decade now is stunning, and it just speaks to what makes tournament golf so thrilling. It's just a battle within yourself. I mean, the ball's just sitting there mocking you, and you're just alone with your thoughts out there. And Rory's a classic example of a guy who has all the physical talent, but there's a missing piece in what he's doing at the tournaments that really matter. So I've given up trying to predict Rory. I mean, he could open 62-62 and run away with this thing. I mean, that's within the realm of possibility, but it's never easy, right? I mean, I think, when you think about like David Duval, when he won his British Open, he made the cut by one shot. He barely made the cut. He was nowhere in there. And then he went crazy low on Saturday. And then Sunday, he just kind of hung on and nobody made a run. I mean, that might be the template for Rory. Just kind of sneak into the weekend, do something incredible on Saturday, and then everyone just falls apart on Sunday. I mean, a lot of majors have been won with that formula. He just hasn't, he's been a little unlucky in that regard. No one's handed him one. If you contend as often as he does, usually one just falls into your lap. It hasn't happened for him yet, but it has to, you would think, as long as he keeps putting himself there. But yeah, the state of Rory is a fascinating subject.
He's been so close to, he could have 7 if you really think about it. He said, look, they don't owe me anything, but I feel like I'm kind of owed one. Does it feel that way when you're out there watching him?
Yes and no. I mean, I think about the old course. I walked 2 years ago, I walked every hole on Sunday with him. And, the story was, well, Cam Smith shot 30 on the back nine and stole it. But Rory made so many little mistakes. He didn't make a bogey, but he squandered so many birdie chances. Just so many soft pars on a course that was really defenseless that day. And he just never hit the right shot at the right time. He didn't make any putts that mattered. It was like, he said, "Oh, I didn't make a bogey on Sunday playing in the last group at a major with it, and I had a 2-shot lead. That's usually good enough, but it wasn't good enough." Like there's always a moment in every Sunday at a major when you have to do something. You have to hit a great shot. There's a do or die putt, and Rory hasn't hit that shot and he hasn't made that putt. So I guess he's unlucky that people have stolen it from him. The way Bryson played on the weekend at Pinehurst, obviously that incredible shot in the bunker, but you had that feeling, even when Rory had the lead in the back nine, he was playing a little cautiously, and Bryson was attacking. And in sports, when one team is playing sort of defensively and one team is playing aggressively, you can usually see what's going to happen. And over time, they're going to make up that deficit. And that's exactly what Bryson did. So it's just like Rory protects a little too much. The putter, he doesn't release the putter. He has to just freewheel it. He has to pretend it's Thursday at Quail Hollow. Easier said than done, but we know he can hit the shots. I mean, you look at the shot he hit on the safe second hole to win the Scottish Open last year, that bullet 2-iron through the wind. One of the greatest shots this century. I mean, there's a plaque out there in the middle of the fairway for a reason. It was pure talent. There's a handful of guys that could hit that shot who've ever walked the earth, but Rory just can't do that when it really matters. So can you find that missing piece? I don't know. We're gonna find out. But um, this is not, it's do or die. It's 8 months till Augusta. So if he wants to salvage his year, if he wants to flip the narrative, this is Glory's last shot, as they used to call the PGA Championship when it was the last major. Now it's the Open Championship. He's got one more bite at the apple. We'll see if he can do it, but it's hard to feel confident. I'll say that.
Alan, last thing for you. Really appreciate your time today. You've written a book about LIV Golf. There's the famous photo of Greg Norman looking like he's about to stick a 4-iron where the sun don't shine from behind you there. When you have, a U.S. Open that plays out the way it did with Rory and it's Bryson, and you have, the reintegration of a lot of those LIV players into those major events, what is your level of surprise, if any, that we seem to have gone from, as you put it, Rory fighting for the soul of golf, to what I think is a general level of an acceptance and a malaise that this is just now how it is, and all the talk about blood money and everything else is just kind of a back burner to what it's always been, which is the golf.
I'm still distracted by the image of Greg Norman in the 4-iron. How about a hybrid? It's got some smoother edges or something. But yeah, I mean, the insidious thing about sports washing is that it works. In 2022 when LIV launched, every week, every press conference, there was so many questions. The Saudi issue hung over everything. 9/11, Jamal Khashoggi, you name it. It was an inescapable talking point. And now it never gets brought up. A fatigue sets in among the fans, among the reporters, among the players, and that's why sports washing is effective. So, yeah, the larger geopolitical issues have largely receded from view. What it means for the sport and how it's going to get put back together, it remains a humongous question. I mean, they are very close to consummating a deal where the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, which funds LIV Golf, is going to inject $1 billion or $2 billion into PGA Tour enterprises. And at that point, we can lower the drawbridges and try and the tours are never going to merge. That's been bad language ever since June 6th of last year when it kind of first broke. They were trying to get this done. There's always going to be, as long as Yasir Al-Rumayyan is in power. He's the patriarch of LIV Golf. As long as he controls the purse strings, there's going to be a full schedule on LIV Golf because it's his baby and he cares about it and he's going to keep funding it. And so they're going to remain these parallel. There's going to be the LIV Golf. There's going to be the PGA Tour. The question is if they can consummate this deal and if they can put down the guns metaphorically and create some on ramps. So LIV guys can play on the tour and tour guys can play on LIV. Then we can start to put the game back together. But first, the deal has to get done, and there's a tremendous amount of money involved. There's a lot of ego. There's the legacies of some very powerful people are at stake here, and so they just can't get the deal consummated. There's an army of lawyers. There's probably 36 lawyers who are part of this conversation on a regular basis. It's just an absolute mess, and so I still believe a deal will get done sometime this calendar year because the game is paralyzed. If you're out there in the marketplace as the tour or as LIV Golf, you don't know what you're selling because you don't know which players you're going to have. I mean, Bryson has become the biggest star in golf, and the tour doesn't know if they're going to have access to him. The sponsors don't. It's an untenable situation. So I believe in my heart a deal will get done, but the devil's in the details and what that's going to look like, how the players can flow back and forth, what kind of punitive damages the tour is going to seek from the guys who left. Like all those things are mucking up this getting it done. But I think we will have a more unified sport by the end of this year. But again, this story's been so volatile, and there's so many people who are part of the conversation, all with differing agendas. It's not a sure thing. I'll say that.
All right, Alan, last one. I can't quit Rory, so I'm going to keep picking him. But who do you think ultimately lifts the claret jug on Sunday?
I have a sneaky feeling about Jon Rahm.
Oh.
He's been playing very well on LIV Golf, and no one's been paying attention. He said in his press conference that his game is where he wants it to be, and finally, and he's a guy who has immense pride, and he's been largely forgotten this year because he hasn't played well in the majors. He hasn't even won a LIV Golf event, and this is like we were talking about with Roy. This is your last chance to change your whole year. If you win the Open Championship, it's been a spectacular year, no matter what else has happened. So he's one of those guys who hits it so good. He knows how to play over there. He's played a lot of links golf. I think, what happened last weekend with Spain, the sort of the triple decker of the Euros, Wimbledon, and then even his buddy Sergio won the LIV event in Spain, and his team won over there. I think Rahm feels left out. I think he feels marginalized, and I think he's tired of it. So I think he's going to bring it. But again, Scottie Scheffler's the betting favorite for a reason. He hits the ball significantly better than anyone else in golf, and that's paramount. So you can never go wrong betting chalk on Scottie. But I'll take Rahm as kind of a surprise choice.
Alan, you're the best, man. Fantastic context. Really appreciate you joining the show.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.